Get a little less intimidating. Welcome to day 2 of the NNIP meeting. If there's anybody new, I'm Kathy Pettit. I co-direct NNIP with Leah Hendy. And we have a packed day today, so we can end by 3:15 to go to the tours. So first, if we could start by I don't know if we could raise the lights a little bit and start by introducing people who came in after introductions yesterday. Okay. So you'll just need to raise your hand. If you were not here yesterday during introductions and came in late, please raise your hand. Yep.
Oh, am I introducing myself?
Yep.
Hello, everyone.
Is fine.
Hi, I'm Della Jenkins with AISP in Philadelphia.
Hello, Amy Hahn Nelson, AISP, and also alumni. Actionable intelligence for social policies. We help government agencies use data more responsibly and ethically. We're based out of Penn, but I live in Charlotte, which is confusing for everyone.
Melissa Sy O'Brien, Dorothea Johnson Center for Philanthropy, located in Grand Rapids, but I'm based out of Columbus and also first time at NNIP. Welcome.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Pablo Castro. I'm here with the Microsoft Justice Reform Initiative team.
And hi, I'm Steve Saylor. I'm with the Western PA Regional Data Center at the University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Murphy with CSR Communications, and we're working with NNIP on a strategic plan. Nice to see you all.
Good morning, Joshua Pine with the National League of Cities based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and first time here, so excited to learn more.
Good, we need a Cincinnati partner, so we'll get your help on that.
Liz Monk, Pittsburgh.
Hi, we're Peter Tatian from Urban Institute in Urban Greater DC.
Anyone else?
Anyone? Don't be shy.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. You guys can, I don't know about how the lights work for the folks behind the scenes, but we'll get started with the slides. If could move to the next. Oh, I have the slide thing. I'm still forgetting this. I'll get used to it by the end. So I wanted to start the morning by honoring somebody who is really important to the NNIP network that most of you don't know anything about. Jim Gibson was a major player in the civil rights movement in the 60s. He was executive secretary to NAACP's Atlanta chapter in the 60s. He worked alongside Martin Luther King in Atlanta. He was part of a group of researchers in the 60s that pushed for urban renewal to pay more attention to housing and employment needs of communities of color. He had many leadership roles in DC, especially as we gained home rule in the 70s. He was a confidant of Marion Barry. He was our first director of city planning in the city, numerous commissions and other important roles in how DC developed. But we came into his life a little later when he was at the Rockefeller Foundation, funding the original NNIP Partners before NNIP began. And he was really, seeded those efforts by Claudia Colton and Charlotte Kahn and all those folks, Terry Bailey, all those folks in the beginning, to really experiment and think about data as a community organizing tool and how to shift power in new ways. And to really support them as they wanted to come together and learn more, build out the model, bring it to other people. And he was the one who shepherded bringing NNIP to urban and doing the first report that Tom Kingsley and Peter Tatian and a bunch of other people worked on. And he also founded and led DC Agenda, which was our NNIP partner in DC for a long time. And Jake was there, and DC Agenda did some really amazing things for the city, particularly in consensus building and making sure we're paying attention to the people who need the most help, et cetera. So he passed away earlier this year. Peter went to the memorial, and Marge Turner. But I just want his memory to be remembered. And we are part of his amazing legacy. So I'll have Elizabeth put the full obituary in the Slack. So thank you. You now know about Jim Gibson. He was also just like the kindest man. Like, he was just good to be around, inspiring mentor, just a completely amazing human being too. All right, so we're just going to take a little bit of time this morning to look back about 12 months, about what we think we've accomplished, just the highlights, and look forward a little bit to some more concrete ideas we have about 2023 before jumping into the future planning work in the next session. So we ended 2021 celebrating our 25th anniversary with amazing response to a panel by Angela Glover Blackwell founder of PolicyLink, and Lisa Hamilton, president of the Casey Foundation, on data and equity. 1,200 people registered, and more than 500 people showed up. So again and again, you'll hear this repetition of our continued astonishment at how many folks are interested in the work that we're doing and the themes that we're exploring together. So we also continued our tradition virtually of awarding the G. Thomas Kingsley Award. Tom was the founding director of NNIP, who worked with Jim to get NNIP started and ran NNIP for a couple decades. We awarded the Impact Award this year to Innovate Memphis for their great work in addressing housing instability with data in collaboration with the city, CDCs, community partners, a whole host of work, like a portfolio of work. It really shows how some foundation of data and relationships can help in many ways in a sector. But all the other ones were also amazing. We wrote them all up on Atlanta, economic development. Milwaukee was around people reentering from incarceration. San Antonio helped in corporate philanthropy, and Seattle had their COVID tool that helped the public health department decide where to put vaccination sites, testing sites, et cetera, and how to really data inform interventions to the pandemic. So all those stories are on the website that we've been excited to share. We also, based on the work of Amy and her team, published a beautiful guide to data chats, which I keep on my desk next to the Civic Switchboard one, so that I can show people on Zoom. We've gotten a really wide response to that guide. People are really interested in figuring out how to bring data to regular people in the neighborhood. So having this tool is going to be, we know, is influential. And we also support potential partners in several cities. In Hartford, Wilmington, we're rebuilding the Denver group along the way. That's more behind the scenes. We're so excited to have Columbus back. Welcome to the Kira and Morpsey folks. So this is one of the benefits of NNIP, is that when institutional change happens in a city, we sort of can walk alongside the groups who are still interested and rebuild and reconnect. So this warms our heart to have Columbus back in the fold, doing such amazing work. And to honor Noah Urban as a network steward. You know, and the smart people you always go to ask for help, Noah's in that category for me. He's incredibly generous in sharing Detroit's work for other partners, whether it's topical like housing or business models, fundraising, helping other cities. The list is endless. And he also represents NNIP to external folks often that we send to him too. So if we could have a round of applause for Noah. We many of you attended the virtual racial equity goals work sessions. We did one on systems indicators with Strive, asset framing, engaging communities with the data chat guide. So we feel like doing these deep dives into those goals is helping us make progress, and would like to think more about how that could be more effective. And then finally, thank you all for answering the data management and technology survey. It really gave us a level set of what kind of tech people are using, both to know how to connect one another and what we should focus on peer learning. So we also wanted to share a little bit about how your work is influencing ideas outside of the network, which may be invisible to you. We really, part of the network strategy you'll see in the next session is really thinking about how can we broaden our reach and get the information and the insights we know from all of your work to other places. So one of those ways this happened was a paper that Lee and I did for the Data Funders Collaborative, and Chris Kingsley at Casey around envisioning the future, building trust and data use. It has a really a really great framework that we're really proud of all of the ways, the different ways that that philanthropy, but anyone needs to build community data capacity. And I should have put that right last, not last, but next to it. The community data capacity framework we built out really talks about what we need at the individual level, what we need at organizational level, what do we need at the community level for a place to be good at data, as Laura McKernan says. And then puts the data resources and tools and help sort of along those sides of those skill sets. So this broader framework that we can bring to the field, that we share out this vision I just did in the webinar to 400 people this week, has really helped us communicate how we think about community data capacity. I mentioned our goals in racial equity that we've also shared and presented to many people. And the Urban Institute submitted a comment to Denise, basically, or to her colleagues, to the recent call for ideas and examples of equitable data practice and tools. Particularly, they wanted examples of where local governments and community were partnering. So the Urban Institute has that letter on our website where we drew from a lot of your work when we shared examples. And you probably have, we've been peppering you with emails all year long for, there are now 2 grant programs that we run that are modeled after our NNIP beliefs and vision, which is people can use data to move equity and well-being. So the first one we did right after COVID that you all are directly responsible for. So we heard in April 2020, all of the questions and inquiries and new demands for information that you all were getting from your communities, and and we're at that time advising the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation on some flexible funding they had, and we decided, I don't know, in a phone call to start a grant program, of a small grant program to let people work on any topic they wanted to address the COVID. So that could mean housing, it could mean education, it meant a lot of things. So having that sort of flexible local communities know what's needed on the ground. Money, I know it wasn't it's a pretty limited, it was a limited amount of money and time, but it was a quick infusion to let people support their communities in a really urgent space. And then a year and a half later, George Hober, our great program officer, said, that went really well. Why don't we do it again? And it even expanded it. So this is really based on what we heard from you in the field and your demonstration we sent him a long list of what you guys had done even in March and April. Leah has a compilation and Elizabeth worked on it of all the many of the things you did in COVID that we'll share. And then on the heels of that, the Microsoft Justice Reform Initiative, and we had been chatting with Elizabeth Grossman, really we're also interested in having a broader touch in more places and launched the grant program around, particularly around reform of the criminal legal system. So those are both run out of Urban. We've been super excited to meet all kinds of amazing change makers around the country. But there's others listed here that many of you would have applied for or won. There's 5 cities Noah mentioned around the CDC Foundation one. The one San Antonio's doing around HHS, which was directly related to the grant we had from them at the end of the Obama era. Justice policy folks here are working with folks on Tableau about visualizing city budgets, and the most recent one from the de Beaumont Foundation that I think the first phase is about to be announced in the next couple of weeks. So these are all based on data ecosystems, on community data capacity, on needing disaggregated neighborhood data. So it really feels like a lot of the ideas that we've been working on for a couple of decades are gaining ground. So these were these are not set in stone, but some ideas we had about how to plan for 2023. You'll learn about the strategic planning activities in the next session. We do have discussions and support for the potential partners to grow the network. If you know of other cities that are interested, we love to talk to them about what how NNIP could look in their city. We need to do a whole set of rebuilding relationships with national organizations. We realized from the meeting here that a lot of those people had turned over or moved away, or the Federal Reserve folks we didn't have as deep of a network with as we did before. I didn't think we didn't fully realize that impact until we saw that there were fewer of them learning from us here today. And then thinking more about public sessions, pairing your work. We do a lot of internal webinars, but to do one that has more visibility and pairing with the urban experts, as I mentioned, hoping to make more connections between the policy research we do here, paired with a local example on a given issue. We'd love your ideas on how to continue work on the racial equity goals. I think the one that Leah suggested working on was more of going back to the internal one, which is probably unfairly just one goal at the bottom, which could be broken out into 50 of the goals. We had a survey a few years ago on partners' racial and ethnic breakdowns for staff and board and DEI efforts that we'd like to repeat and update. We've heard a call from you all for business and organizational help, like fundraising and planning for succession and staff development and those sort of not data specific things, but how to strengthen your organizations more broadly. And we also have a lot of questions on census data, like when should I use it? How are you, when are you saying no to using it? If you're not using it, what are all those codicils, I think, the Connecticut folks mentioned. So we have a host of experts that we know that know census data really well that could talk to us in practical ways about the how to use the possibly imperfect data. So these were just some flags to encourage all of you to participate more in the network. There's some formal ways here you can read. The network runs on the energy and work of all of you. So we plan to return to the participation scorecard, which most of you probably don't know what we did because we suspended it during COVID when everybody was so overwhelmed. But we do sort of track how people engage, how different cities engage with the network to share back with you as a reflection piece that we plan to reintroduce this year. Both all of you who are here, lucky to be here now, but also your colleagues who might be at home who may not know NNIP as well. And then, oh yes, and here's some other ways that you can benefit NNIP about people have had partners come to present at their data days or at their various events. If you want to help Sonia on the Twitter, tweeting with NNIP, the Google group, where we are really grateful for everybody who jumps in and answers, acknowledging NNIP in your local work, and also just a reminder that there's a Twitter list of NNIP partners, so you can follow everybody all at once, which is a super easy way to keep track of all the cool work that you guys are doing in between these meetings. So that is all I had for today. If there's questions or thoughts, we have a few minutes. Things we didn't cover. I know it's early. Anything from the executive committee you guys want to add that I forgot? We didn't share this with you beforehand. We ran out of time. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and we will shift now. I'm going to turn it over to Leah to kick off with the strategic planning session.